Today, we are here to talk about a trend that's been slowly building over the last couple of years: book blankets. If you are an active social media scroller, then you probably have seen crocheters and a few influencers crochet granny squares with colors that match the book covers of the book they completed. When this first came around, I, along with other crocheters and book lovers, thought this was a great idea. Create a blanket about the books you read for the year? Yes! Around the time this trend was starting to gain momentum was about 2023, beginning of 2024, right around the time when everyone is starting to plan their temperature blankets or year-long projects. Of course, right around the time I was already committed to 2 granny square blanket projects, and I was preparing a move to Florida from Washington State. Not a good time to start. However, I did watch what others were making and seeing who was doing what with their book blankets. A lot of crocheters stuck with the original trend: traditional granny squares with colors that match the book covers. Some crocheters got a little creative and chose a different granny square pattern, straying away from the traditional pattern. Looking at this particular trend with granny squares and color matching book covers, a few issues come to mind. Number 1, yarn equals money and storage. If you are nitpicky like myself, you will start building a yarn collection of every color and shade imaginable really fast. Therefore, it creates a money issue as well as a storage issue. Number 2, planning. I am a planner when it comes to these types of projects. How many squares do I need to make, and can I add more or less? How big do I need to make the squares? What hook and yarn size do I need to use? These questions and more run constantly through my mind when I'm planning these types of projects. And last but not least, number 3, the trend is overdone. It is 2026 and crocheters are still using the granny square and color matching book cover idea. Let me say this first and foremost. The trend of a book blanket is not overdone. What is overdone is the granny square color matching book cover concept. And I'm not saying granny squares are bad. There are tons of granny square patterns out there for anyone to choose from. But it's starting to lose its uniqueness. What is still unique about the project is the memory upon memory upon memory that the crafter is putting into the blanket. And that's what I want to do. I want to create a blanket that reminds me of the books I read in 2026. Just not the traditional way. In 2024, there was a crocheter and book lover whom I followed on TikTok, and for the life of me, I cannot remember her TikTok handle. If I find it, I'll let y'all know. Who decided to make a book blanket. Instead of going the granny square and color matching book covers that everyone else was doing, she decided to go a different route, more of a temperature blanket route. Instead of matching colors to each book, she decided to correlate each genre with a color. But she didn't stop there. She took it a step further and added a rating system. Each star rating, 1 through 5, had its own stitch. For example, if she read a fantasy book and she gave it 5 stars, then she would have to crochet in double crochet with green yarn. And she kept doing that all year long with all the books she read. That to me is unique. She took the idea of a book blanket but made it her own. Now, with all that being said, I am going to make myself a book blanket, and here's how I'm going to do it. First things first, I have so much yarn that I need to use it. I am not going to buy any yarn for this project. I am calling this the book purge blanket. I am going to correlate each genre with a color, and the colors listed are very basic. Example, blue, red, green, orange, etc. Because I'm trying to use up my yarn stash. For example, if I use a blue, I may use a lighter blue at first and use it all up. Then I'll move to another blue, and it may be more navy blue, but it doesn't matter what shade of blue as long as it is blue. Oh, and before I forget, I do have a color for any book that I have read in the past and decide to reread. You know, refresh my memory for when a new book in the series comes out, or because I need a comfort read. Second, I am not going to make a rectangle blanket of any kind, and I'm not going to do multiple granny squares. However, I am going to do a granny square. It's just going to be a really, really, really big one. And I'm going to use my favorite stitch, the moss stitch, also known as the linen stitch. The reason being, it allows me to be flexible with the number of books I read for the year. Last year, I read 125 books. The year before that, 84. My goal this year is 50 books. That is half of my goal from last year. So far, I have completed 7 books for 2026. Lastly, I am going to use a 5mm crochet hook with worsted weight yarn because that's what I have the most of. Overall, it will be a decent sized blanket. I haven't decided if I'm going to do a border or not with this blanket, but I have until December to figure it out. For each book I finish reading, it's going to get 2 rows in whatever color the genre is. Last year, I DNF or did not finish reading somewhere around 3 to 5 books out of the 125 books I read. To some people, that counts as reading still, even if you did not finish it. So if I do not finish a book, it gets 1 row. Pretty simple, right? Here's how I'm going to break down the months. At the beginning of each month, I am going to crochet 3 rows in white. I feel like it is a good way to break up the months and the colors and also look back and go, wow, I read that many books that month? What if I start a book in 1 month but finish it in another month? What month do I put the book in? Very simple. The end date is what month the book will go into. So if I start a book in January but finish it in February, it goes into the February count. Make sense? Now you're probably all wondering, Amanda, how are you going to determine what genre a book goes into? Well, yes, a book can fall into many genres. I am going to pick the first one listed via Goodreads. That's how I keep track of my reading goal, and Google searches. Sometimes a publishing company is really nice and they put the genre on the back cover of the book. And that's also another way of how I'll determine what genre the book falls into. I know this is a lot, so let me simplify. Number 1, no buying yarn. I have to use the yarn I currently have in my stash. Even if the colors don't match, I cannot go out and buy more yarn. This is a destashing project. Number 2, completed books gets 2 rows. Number 3, incomplete books or DNF gets 1 row. 4, each month is marked with 3 rows of white yarn at the beginning of each month. Number 5, the border is to be decided. 6, the end date determines what month the book is placed in. Number 7, Goodreads and Google searches will determine what genre a book goes into, unless the publishing company has it on the cover of the book. Here are the colors that will correlate with each genre. Rereads, yellow. Autobiographies and memoirs, multicolor. YA, new adult, gray. Romance, pink. Dark romance, black. Fiction, purple. Holiday, sparkle. Historical fiction, brown. Classics, blue. Mystery and thrillers, red. Sci-fi, green. Fantasy romantasy, orange. At the end of each month, I will post on my Instagram, Facebook, and Threads about the books I have read and what genre that book falls into, as well as an update on my book blanket. Making posts will help me keep myself accountable for this project. I'll also try to make some videos to share along the way, but it will be more shorts and reels. I will release a full video about my experience with the book blanket project at the beginning of 2027. Hopefully I'll finish it by then. So with all that said and done, what books should I read in 2026? Let me know in the comments. And until then, happy crafting and happy reading.